What if everything you thought you knew about the Sister Wives breakup was only half the story? Because while the camera stayed in Flagstaff, something explosive may be unfolding in North Carolina. A blurry photo, secret trips, and whispers that could change the power balance forever. This is not just about moving on. This is about control, money, and a quiet exit that may terrify one man more than any public breakup ever did. Stick with us, because once you see how deep this really goes, you will never watch Sister Wives the same way again. And if you want the real tea, not the edited version, make sure you subscribe right now, because we don't miss what the cameras leave out. Welcome back to Coco Gossip, where every quiet moment hides a deeper truth. And today we are stepping into a story that refuses to stay silent. For years, viewers have watched the Sister Wives family fracture, slowly, painfully, and publicly. But what is unfolding now may be the most unexpected shift yet. Because while attention has stayed locked on Flagstaff, something entirely different may be taking shape hundreds of miles away in North Carolina. And it all begins with whispers, not announcements, not confirmations, but patterns that are becoming harder to ignore. Fans began noticing it months ago. Janelle Brown, traveling east more often, staying longer, returning lighter, calmer, quieter about her personal life. At first, it was easy to accept the surface explanation, helping Maddie, being present as a grandmother, supporting family. But patterns speak louder than statements. And when those trips stretched from days into weeks, speculation began building quietly among longtime watchers who know this family well. Then came the photo. Not public, not official, but circulated privately. A grainy image taken from a distance at what appears to be an upscale restaurant. A woman, strongly resembling Janelle, seated comfortably, leaning forward, laughing freely. Across from her, a man unknown to the public. Not a son, not a familiar face, not tied to the past narrative. And what struck viewers was not just who she was with, but how she looked. Different. Posture relaxed, shoulders down, eyes bright. A version of Janelle rarely seen during years on camera. The man, described by those discussing the image as calm, composed, confident. Not flashy, not loud, but steady and grounded. The kind of presence that does not need to announce itself. And that contrast alone ignited conversation, because contrast reveals what was missing for decades. Nothing about this has been confirmed, and everything remains theory. But the emotional response it triggered cannot be dismissed. What truly intensified the discussion was the detail some noticed on Janelle's hand, a glint that could be nothing or could be everything. A ring, not spiritual, not symbolic, not tied to past beliefs, but something more traditional, more intentional. And suddenly, the narrative shifted from travel to possibility, from support to transformation. Insiders speculate that Maddie may have introduced her mother to someone new, not as a setup, but as an organic connection born from proximity and shared values. Maddie has seen partnership built on respect and mutual support, and perhaps wanted the same for the woman who spent years prioritizing stability over self. This theory resonates because it fits the timeline and the emotional shift viewers are sensing. And the mystery man, as described in whispers, represents everything the old structure was not. Calm, emotionally present, financially independent, someone who does not need validation or control. And for a woman long framed as practical rather than romantic, being seen, chosen, and prioritized would change everything. But what makes this story compelling is not just what may be happening in North Carolina, but how the reaction back in Flagstaff is allegedly unfolding. Because instead of detachment or indifference, insiders claim there is tension, fixation, and growing unease. Often reveal truths words try to hide. Longtime viewers recall statements made dismissing romance, minimizing connection, framing the relationship as functional rather than emotional. So why now? The heightened concern, the whispered monitoring, the alleged anxiety. The answer, many believe, lies not in heartbreak, but in identity loss. Because when someone you once defined quietly thrives without you, it forces a reckoning. It challenges the story you told yourself about why things failed. And more importantly, who was responsible. Insiders suggest that the idea of Janelle finding peace elsewhere is more destabilizing than open conflict, because conflict keeps emotional ties intact, while calm independence severs them completely. And that shift matters, especially when the family system relied heavily on roles, contribution, and obligation. Janelle was the anchor, the numbers person, the one who sacrificed comfort for long-term vision. And when someone like that detaches, the entire structure feels it. Speculation suggests that this is why attention has turned back toward her movements, her choices, her finances, not out of care, but out of fear. Fear that she no longer needs permission, fear that she no longer needs reconciliation, fear that she no longer needs access to shared dreams to survive. And as whispers grow, so does the sense that this is not just a personal evolution, but a turning point, one that could reshape unresolved tensions around land, money, and narrative control. And that is where this story is headed next, because North Carolina may not just represent a new chapter, it may represent the moment the old one finally loses its grip. As the whispers around North Carolina continue, another layer of this unfolding story begins pulling attention back to Flagstaff and towards something far less romantic, but far more volatile. Unresolved finances, unfinished promises, and a stretch of land that has symbolized hope, control, and conflict for years. Coyote Pass, once framed as a shared dream, now sits at the center of growing speculation. Because when personal independence emerges, financial entanglement suddenly feels dangerous. Insiders believe this is where tension is truly rooted, not in her position emotionally and practically, because respect freely given cannot be replaced by obligation, and when respect shifts allegiance, systems built on hierarchy feel exposed. Some insiders believe this is why silence has replaced confrontation, why observation has replaced engagement, because action risks exposure, and exposure risks accountability, especially if records exist and memories are long. Janelle understood the numbers. She tracked the flow. She remembers sacrifices made quietly and benefits enjoyed loudly. And that knowledge, combined with emotional detachment, is powerful. Speculation continues that legal language may surface, not as action, but as signal, a way to slow momentum without ever stepping into a courtroom, because full transparency would risk unraveling a carefully maintained image, and that risk may outweigh any perceived gain. Meanwhile, the mystery figure in North Carolina remains quiet, unseen and unaffected, and that silence may be the most destabilizing element of all, because he does not respond, he does not defend, he does not compete, he simply exists as evidence that another life is possible, and that reality cannot be argued away or rewritten. Insiders suggest that this is why the focus has shifted from denial to delay, from dismissal to monitoring, because delaying change is easier than confronting it. But momentum once gained rarely reverses, and every calm appearance, every quiet trip, every moment of visible peace reinforces the idea that this transition is not impulsive, it is calculated. And that calculation changes everything because it suggests preparation, awareness, and readiness. And when someone who was once the stabilizing force steps back, the structure reveals its cracks. The conversations around land, finances, and future plans suddenly feel more urgent, more anxious, because they always depended on her follow-through. Without her energy, the vision feels incomplete, and that creates tension not because of betrayal, but because of dependence. Viewers have watched this pattern repeat whenever Janelle pulled away, even briefly. Uncertainty followed, and now the pullback appears permanent. What makes this chapter compelling is that no one is chasing. So now the question is not whether this story is ending, but who truly lost control in the process. Was this about love, money, or the fear of being replaced by a life that no longer needs permission? The answers are unfolding quietly, and when they surface, it could change everything. Drop your theory in the comments because your voice drives this investigation. And if you want us to keep exposing what's really happening behind the scenes, hit that subscribe button right now, turn on notifications, and stay with Coco Gossip because the truth always